There is a new poll that was released by the Arab American Institute. And I want to show you what these numbers reflect when it comes to the national support and when it comes to the swing state support for Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, and Jill Stein. But first, I want to show you this. You don't want to show this yet? Yeah, I want to show you this first. There was something that was said during the debate that lets you know that the jig is up. And I'm pretty sure that Tim Walz probably didn't mean to say this the way that he said it, but listen to this.
The expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there.
The expansion. The expansion. Everybody heard what he said? So listen to this again.
The expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there.
The expansion. So keep that in mind when we go through the polls, and then we're going to come back to that clip at the end of this segment because I want to tie everything in together. So it started off with Brian Metzger. He shared this information on Twitter. New polling from the Arab American Institute finds Kamala Harris in a dead heat with Donald Trump, 42% to 41% among Arab Americans, while 12% back third-party candidates. However, that's a big improvement from the 17% that Biden registered in the same poll last October. Now, let's go to the second part. From Brian. The poll also finds that her support among Arab Americans would soar to 54% if she demanded a ceasefire, 56% if she were to suspend diplomatic support arms and shipment to Israel. So let's go back here. I want people to understand something. There seems to be a misconception among Americans in particular, where a lot of Americans seem to assume that everyone that is Arab American is practicing Islam, or everyone that is Arab American is Muslim. And that's not true. So the information that I think you need to remember when we go into these numbers, because I'm going to show you a little bit more detail than he's showing you, because he only showed you part of those numbers. He didn't show you the other part. You have to remember that when they are polling Arab Americans, they're polling Arab Americans, not necessarily Arab American Muslims. So I'm going to show you this poll, and then I'm going to show you the poll from Muslim voters. But I thought it was interesting the way that he worded that, right? And a lot of people, they see this and they think, oh, that means Kamala's doing really well with Muslim voters. No. This is the Arab American vote. That doesn't mean that everyone that is polled is Muslim. This is why I said you need to look at the Muslim voter poll. So keep that in mind. Arab Americans can be Christian. Remember, there are Palestinian Christians, there are Palestinian Jews. Not everybody that is Arab is Muslim, and you have to understand that. So keep that in mind. We look at the numbers. The 12% here, 12% back third-party candidates. Now, this is a national numbers. That's huge for third parties. That's actually significant. I would argue it's higher, but it's higher when you look at the Muslim voter poll. So let's go into the details here. New poll finds Arab American voters evenly divided in the 2024 presidential election. Evenly divided. But again, this is the Arab American Institute. Remember, this is not a poll just for Muslim voters. And I have to keep saying that because what you have to understand is that there are Black Muslims, right? So keep that in mind. But this is where he got his numbers from. And I want to show you something really quick here. Let's pull this up. It says this part right here. according to the new poll of Arab American voters, it says in the presidential race, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are virtually tied at 42% to 41%, respectively. This is the press release. So he pulled his information from the press release. What he did not do was look at the details of the poll. So he didn't click on this link here that says Arab American Vote 2024. So I'm going to show you what he didn't show you, because I want people to fully understand this. When you click onto that link, we're going to go down here just a little bit and you'll see. Here's the other set of numbers that he didn't show you. Turning to the presidential race, it says that Donald Trump and Vice President Harris are virtually tied among the Arab American voters, 42% to 41%. However, the part that he left out, looking more closely with those that report that they are likely to vote, Trump leads Harris 46 to 42%. Don't you think that's something that people should have known? You see how people are trying to find ways to manufacture the consent. You see how people are only giving you certain information. So what they're doing is they're not changing the numbers on you. They're giving you the exact numbers that are from the poll, but they're only giving you certain information to make you think that Kamala is doing better than she is. I've seen it happen on the Republican side as well. Only pulling certain information to make it seem like Trump is way ahead or Kamala is way ahead, etc. But you really need to look at the details. And when you look at the details, it proceeds to tell you that among the likely voters, Donald Trump has 46% and Kamala Harris has 42%. So that 42 and 41% that you were told about previously, those aren't likely to vote. The numbers I just gave you, the 46% and the 42%, are those that are likely to vote. That piece of information is important. This is what I was referring to when I said there are certain accounts, and I've noticed this on social media, they're only showing certain pieces of polls or, articles, etc., data that makes it look like Kamala's doing good, or they only show certain parts that make it look like Trump's doing good, when in reality, sometimes it's somewhere in between. And that is, again, to convince the American people it's very, very tight, very, very tight, very, very close. And I told you guys, I don't really believe it is that tight. So this is another way that they can manufacture consent. This is another way that they can make you believe something without showing you the full picture. Now we have to remember again that Arab Americans, what did we say? We have to remember that Arab Americans can also be Christian, could be non-religious. They're not all Muslim. So let's see if we can pull up the CARE poll. Let's bring this up because I want you to see the difference. And this will explain a lot because it's closer than people realize with, not closer than people, is not as close as people think when we break it down between Muslim voters. So again, this is the CARE poll. This is the swing state data shows Muslim voters hold diverse preferences. So now we're gone from Arab American voters to Muslim voters. Do you see the difference? So let me show you what the numbers show now. Because some people are probably like, how is it Donald Trump could have like 46% among Arab Americans? Because some of those Arab American voters are also Christian. So it's important that you look at the Muslim voter poll here from CARE, the CARE survey. So when we look at this, I'm trying to get this X to go away. Okay, there we go. When we look at this information, CARE initial August 25th through 27th survey revealed that 29.4% of American Muslims plan to vote for Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party, virtually tied with Jill Stein of the Green Party. So does everybody see that? Don't you think that's different information from what you saw from the Arab American Institute poll? Right. These are Muslim voters. Let's continue on. At the same time, Donald Trump of the Republican Party garners 11.2% of the vote, and Dr. Cornel West of the People's Party receives 4.2%. Chase Oliver of the Libertarian Party has less than 1% support, with 16.5% of respondents remaining undecided. Now let's look at the battleground states. See if it'll let me highlight it. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Oh, here we go. With the battleground states, Dr. Stein is leading Harris in Arizona by 35%. She's leading her in Michigan by 40% and Wisconsin by 44%. Kamala Harris leads Jill Stein in Georgia by 43% and Pennsylvania by 37%. Trump's highest support is observed in Nevada, 27%, just ahead of Harris, 26%. So what you are seeing here, when you look at the swing states, which is exactly what Butch Ware was trying to explain to people, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona, Jill Stein is ahead of Kamala Harris with Muslim voters. A third-party candidate. And that is because people are not about this genocide. Now, looking even further, and this one I haven't figured out. So if you live in Nevada, let me know. For whatever reason, in Nevada, Donald Trump is ahead of Kamala Harris with Muslim voters. I don't know what's happening there. I don't know. But in the majority of the swing states, Jill Stein is leading with the Muslim vote. That still remains. That is very important. And this is why people have been coming after Jill Stein. So the question remains again, where does this go from here? Where does this go from here? And there's something else I want to show you. I think you might find this interesting too. When we look at gender, ladies and gentlemen, right here, Kamala Harris leads among Muslim male voters with 29%, but Jill Stein holds a stronger position among Muslim women at 34%. So here we have Jill Stein has a stronger percentage among Muslim women than Kamala Harris does. And Kamala Harris is supposedly, winning over a lot of women, right? So how does Jill Stein have more support among the women? Benjamin Netanyahu, who is basically calling for regime change in Iran. Listen to this.
I speak a lot about the leaders of Iran. Yet at this pivotal moment, I want to address you, the people of Iran. I want to do so directly, without filters, without middlemen. Every day, you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza. Yet every day, that regime plunges our region deeper into darkness and deeper into war. Every day, their puppets are eliminated. Ask Muhammad Def. Ask Nasrallah. There is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach. There's nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss. The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. Imagine if all the vast money the regime wasted on nuclear weapons and foreign wars were invested in your children's education and improving your health care, in building your nation's infrastructure, water, sewage, all the other things that you need.
So you see what's happening here. So this is Benjamin Netanyahu talking about regime change in a way to make it seem like he would free people of Iran. He would free the people of Lebanon by implementing regime change. And we all know that regime change does not work out. And in particular, it definitely has not worked out in the Middle East. This is how they will talk to you, right? This is how he's going to talk to make it seem like I'm trying to help all those people there get away from those terrorists in their country. And that's how they'll talk to you, to make you think, make it sound like he's trying to do something to help them. He's not trying to help those people. He wants those people gone. So this guy is acting. Anytime you hear someone say, a leader say, I want to free up those people, they're calling for regime change. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Donald Trump are all in agreement with it. They all agree with the expansion.
Imagine that. But you know one simple thing. Iran's tyrants don't care about your future, but you do. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different.
That is regime change. When Iran is free, and he tells you, he warns you, it's coming soon, everything will be different. So you have Benjamin Netanyahu talking about regime change in Iran. And so when people are pointing fingers at those third-party voters saying, how dare you not support Kamala Harris? Are you crazy? You could get Donald Trump. Look at everything that's already happened under Biden and Kamala. Look at everything, the genocide, everything. Right now, Israel is bombing Syria, Gaza, Lebanon, and they have just declared war with Iran. So they're trying to fight four different. It seems like to me there's one common denominator. Yes? No? And I want to show you another time our government supported what Israel wanted. Now, this goes back to Saddam Hussein. Listen to this.
There is no question whatsoever that Saddam is seeking and is working and is advancing towards the development of nuclear weapons. No question whatsoever. And there is no question that once he acquires it, history shifts immediately. There is no question that he had not given up on his nuclear program, not whatsoever. There is also no question that he was not satisfied with the arsenal of chemical and biological weapons that he had and was trying to perfect them constantly. Saddam is hell-bent on achieving atomic bombs, atomic capabilities as soon as he can.
In this September 2002 congressional hearing, Netanyahu openly called for war on Iraq and insisted that a U.S. military invasion would be hugely beneficial for the entire Middle East.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. And I think that people sitting right next door.
And that was not the case, right? Of course, we found out that he didn't have weapons of mass destruction, but look who was calling for it. Look who was calling for regime change. Look who was pushing it. Does his face look familiar to you? And now he's calling for regime change again, this time in Iran, in other countries. So the reason why some people, they want to not support this. They say, no, I do not want to support Donald Trump. I do not want to support Kamala Harris. And it seems like to me, the people who are really angry at Muslim voters who want to support Jill Stein, it seems like to me, you're taking your frustration out on the wrong people. It seems like you should be taking your frustration out on Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party for not implementing a real ceasefire, for continuing to give weapons to Israel. You see, once again, people are blaming the wrong people. Just like I saw people getting mad at workers going on strike. Why are you getting mad at the workers? Why aren't you getting mad at the CEOs? Why aren't you getting mad at the billionaires? But we literally have people trying to shame people about voting third party instead of shaming the politicians in office that are continuing to give Israel weapons. So he told you about regime change in Iran. He told you about regime change for Saddam Hussein. He told you all this kind of stuff. And he's fighting all these different countries at the same time. And then you have Tim Walz say this on the debate stage.
The expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States.
Everybody see this? The expansion of Israel is an absolute necessity for the United States. We'll hear it again. I'll let the whole thing play this time.
The expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. Let's keep in mind where this started.
Let's understand how we got here.
October 7th.
On October 7th,
Hamas terrorists
Hamas, a terrorist organization,
massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners.
Slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Women were horribly raped.
Still repeating the lie.
And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself.
Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. The expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. Let's keep in mind where this.
So Tim Walz, I think, slipped up a little bit there when he said the expansion of Israel. I'm pretty sure that's not what he wanted to say or what he was supposed to say. But what that tells you, ladies and gentlemen, is that the U.S. government 100% supports what Israel is doing. They're not against Israel killing people in Gaza. They're not against Israel killing people in Lebanon. They're not against Israel going to war with Iran. In fact, they support everything that Israel is doing, and they want Israel to expand. And I'm sorry, but don't get mad at me. I'm not the one who said it. Tim Walz let the cat out the bag on the debate stage. And I think it went over a lot of people's heads. They may not have been paying attention to it, but he's letting you know they do support it. That's why they're still giving them the weapons. That's why the only reason they called for it and they said that we needed a ceasefire, I told you guys, that was fake. They were acting. They were trying to fool you. The only reason why they did that is because there was massive protests in the street across the world. So they figure, how do we get the protesters to be quiet? We call for the same demand that they're calling for, which is a ceasefire. And that's what they did, but they never actually did the ceasefire. So every time people talk about it, they say we're working tirelessly. Everybody got the same line. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris changed the number of people that were killed on October 7th. She telling you 1,200. He said 1,400. They're all reading from a script. These people are liars. And then people want to point fingers at those who want to vote third party instead. It is not our fault if Kamala Harris loses. It is the Democratic Party's fault. It is Kamala Harris's fault for lying to the American people. It is not our fault that Kamala Harris has lost the Muslim vote. That is her fault. And people have to remember, too, as I've said before, there are also Black Muslims. Now, for those of you who say, but Sabby, what about abortion rights? What about the women? Jill Stein was actually on Breaking Points earlier today. And I want to show you what Jill Stein says about that particular question, because it was Sagar who brings it up. Listen to this.
Upset about Israel, but I've got this abortion referendum or whatever on the ballot. If I don't vote to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get into the office, then I could literally have, an issue I care a lot about suffer. What would you say to somebody like that? You've talked a lot about abortion, but they have to think that way.
For one thing, Democrats could solve that problem right now, and the Biden-Harris administration could set up the abortion clinics on federal land, on military bases, and so on, all around the country. So this problem could be solved, and shame on them for not solving it. And sure, the White House administration might change, but once those abortion clinics are set up on federal land, it will be very hard to take them away. Also, you have the fact that these referendums are passing all over. Let
me just pause it there for a second and I'll come back in. I have to fix that. But the point that I want to bring across here, notice what Jill Stein just told you. Why isn't Kamala Harris telling you that? Why didn't Joe Biden tell you that? Why didn't they tell you that they could set up abortion clinics on federal land right now? I thought they cared about these women. I thought they cared about this. Don't they care about this issue so much? That's why they haven't codified it into law, even though Obama promised that he would and then backed off of it. So essentially, Kamala Harris is doing the same thing that she said Donald Trump was doing. When she said Donald Trump blocked the border bill to further his campaign, we can say the same thing about abortion with the Democratic Party. You guys have never tried to get done what you could get done with abortion, and you're not even trying to put abortion clinics on federal land, which would not be impacted because you want to run on that issue. So Donald Trump wanted to run on the border, and Kamala Harris, you wanted to run on abortion. Explain to me again how these parties are phenomenally different. Tell me. Now we'll go to this other part here. I also want to show you something else that she said on Breaking Points too, because I think that was important.
So Dr. Stein, I know you object to the idea of lesser evil voting, but do you in fact think that Democrats are the lesser evil of the two parties?
You know, how do you get more evil than conducting genocide? How do you get more evil than attacking peaceful protesters who are simply giving voice to the values of the American people and the values of the world and having your heads cracked in? How do you get more evil than establishing the cop cities? There are some 80 of them that are being built now around the country, and many of them under Democratic municipal administrations like in Atlanta. This is an assault on our basic democratic rights, on our freedom of speech, on basic human rights and international law that's going on. So
do you see Republicans then as a lesser evil?
I don't see a lesser evil. I think we have two greater evils. And let me pause there for a second. This is the problem, I think, with the duopoly, right? So Crystal said on Piers Morgan a while back that she was going to be voting for Jill Stein. I don't know if that still holds or not. Once Kamala entered the race, she became like a big Kamala stan. She'll still criticize her, but again, she's there to defend the Democratic Party. So when you ask a third party candidate, particularly the Green Party, and you ask them, who do you think is the lesser two evils? If they thought that were the case, they would be with one of those parties. They're in a third party because they realize they're both evil. So this is where Crystal comes in to try to help out the Democratic Party here a little bit. And let me see if I can try to prove that Jill Stein believes that the Republicans are the less evil, right? Why are we arguing about what's lesser evil during a genocide? Why are we even arguing about that? Why are we bargaining? And when you say lesser evil, you yourself are acknowledging that the Democratic Party is also evil. So why are you supporting evil? I don't understand this at all. And some people could have made excuses for it before, like back in the past. But now, like with the genocide, how can you even say, how is that less? What do you mean lesser evil under a genocide?
Both parties, take contributions from PACs, corporate PACs. They work with super PACs. They can take $1 million checks. A single, donor with deep pockets can write a check for $1 million and exert enormous influence. The Greens do not participate in these legalized loopholes for corruption. So, we are, the one national scope party that can actually stand for what the American people desperately, which is squandering half of our congressional budget on the endless war machine.
But you guys get the point there, right? Like this whole idea of the lesser of evil during a time that when we have a genocide actually happening is really weird to me. And I remember saying to myself, like, wow, I know it's been crazy out there and I know times have been rough, but I never thought that I would see quote unquote progressives seriously trying to defend, the genocidal behavior, or not really defend the genocidal behavior, but still give excuses as to why you should still support it. And that has been completely disappointing. But I think you get the point there. This is why Muslim voters. This is why Jill Stein is winning over a lot of those Muslim voters, because I mean, I kind of get where they're coming from. Why should they? Why should they come out and support Kamala Harris after what has happened to their family members in the Middle East? Why should they?